and years, but no one's talking about it like a month ago, and all of a sudden it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. We see all this volume and on-chain action that's happening over there. How much of this is social engineering? How did Justin Sun pay for a huge marketing campaign to kind of create this hype, or is this truly organic? Like energy and volume coming over to the Tron chain. It also makes me think about base, which 4 months. I think in my prediction it might be comparable kind of a cycle to that, where Brett launched on Base and Base became the super hype chain. Is this going to overtake Solana? And no, I think Solana still has a lot more power over Base. We've seen a little bit of a receding of that volume on the Base chain. So I'm not sure exactly. Of course, no one is, but it might just be a little cycle of Tron here.
So, Funk, I have a question then, and that's Funk over in the K9 account, you guys. I wonder, since you brought up Base, comparing what Justin Sun is doing with Tron to what Brian Armstrong is doing with Base, I couldn't feel more like in my mind like it's like that two castle meme with the two paths. Like you can choose the darker the light. Like, because I know Coinbase's reputation is certainly a little bit more spotless. They've got more comfortable with the regulators, and they've got more people that are involved in U.S. government lobbying and stuff. And then you got Justin Sun, who's like, living in a tower somewhere, trying to avoid scrutiny and stuff like that. What do you think in your mind when you think of those two for longevity? Who's going to stick around for you?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is Coinbase, because if you look at how close they are in the regulatory sense of things to the U.S. government, and how much network they have, how much money and power they have, I think it vastly overshadows Justin Sun. So I think that in the long run, Base would probably be the bigger, more powerful entity, and I doubt that they're going to just let their blockchain kind of simmer down and not have their day in the sun. But with all these cycles, we see the energy, the hype come to it, and you see a ton more on-chain volume, and it never goes quite back to where it was. So even if people move back over from Tron fully to Solana or Base or whatever chain they move on to next, hey, maybe Shibarium with the K9 account. But even if they do that, the other chain that received that hype, that energy, that attention, those eyes, is never going to fall below in volume probably what it was before it got all this new attention.
For sure. And it's those personalities, like Brian Armstrong and Justin Sun. There's always someone leading the charge. Shibarium's a bit different with the decentralization that they have on Shibarium. And the idea, there's Shytoshi and some of the leaders and developers and stuff that work on it, but it is very different in that they don't have that one person that they can blame for the rise or fall, the head that would fall if something went right or wrong. So Coinbase obviously is going to be around, I think, for a long, long time. They'd have to make a major mistake, but Justin Sun, very controversial character. It's interesting. Anybody else, feel free to throw a hand up, because if you're messing with this stuff, this narrative's not going to go away. By the way, if you're hearing about this for the first time here, you are going to be hearing more about Tron and Justin Sun. This is going to be a weeks long thing, because you're hearing it here, which means your normal friends are going to be talking about it in 3 or 4 more days, right? K2, it trickles down, doesn't it?
100%. Well, and I think what's interesting is that there's a few different metas that he can play off of, because the one thing he is that he's a polarizing figurehead, and that's what crypto loves. Crypto loves polarizing figureheads. It's one of the reasons why, like we've latched onto, Trump in the sense, because like he's just that character. Obviously, he's very outspoken about, being for the space, but at the same time, whether we love him or hate him, like he's memeable. He fits the current meta, and Justin is probably the apex predator of that. I don't think it gets any higher than him. It'd be like Vitalik doing something similar. I think you would see a similar reverberation through Ethereum. The thing with Ethereum is that it's a little bit more of a mature chain, and what I don't see a ton of building, dApps and things like that. So, I think it'll be something that blows over. But hey, kudos to him. Anytime that you can make a buck, do it. Anytime that you can help other people make bucks, awesome. So I think he's right person, right time. Everything's right about it. But yeah, I think it'll die out. But Buzz, talk to me.
Yeah, there's an interesting parallel here that I think Pulse specifically will appreciate, and it's the parallel to how much Polkadot spent on their marketing. I think that was maybe 6 weeks ago or a couple months ago when it was leaked how much they spent on marketing with these kind of like 2017, 2018 era influencers. And I'm sure that Funk is right in talking about like questioning how much money did Justin Sun have to throw at this at the wall to get crypto Twitter to start talking about Tron. But there was a very interesting strategy here about not just marketing, hey, go use Tron, go use Polkadot, but you're seeing these influencers on crypto Twitter talk about the metrics, going on Arkham Intelligence and looking at exactly how much USDT is moving over, sharing a lot of the volume that Sun Pump is getting. And I think it speaks towards a lot of where we're at in the market right now. And it's that consumers and people in Web3, they don't want to hear about what you're building. They don't want to hear about, oh, come here because in 2 months or a year, we're going to have this, 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 and this. They want to know, what do you have now and how can I go over and make money right now? And what's the immediate opportunity? And I think it's a good learning experience for all chains, all founders and things like that, that marketing dollars probably go a lot further in this market when you have key metrics to be speaking about, and key metrics seem to be what are popping off and actually getting people to move their dollars.
So would you say,
Yeah.
Buzz, I have a question to follow up with that, but if you're tracking like
Yeah.
things like wallet generation then on Tron, would you be better off, instead of trying to track the market cap of these tokens, because I see people say, oh, these tokens are popping off over there, would it be more telling to track the number of new wallets on chain or some sort of other metric? What would you be looking at to really know?
I mean, to me, it's always TVL. I mean, that's what I'm always looking at when trying to see how chains are developing, because I think many people on this panel may agree it's probably better to have $1 million in TVL amongst 5 wallets than it is to have 100K amongst 1,000 wallets. Because there's just more liquidity being brought into the system, and more actual dollars using the product. Wallet growth is great, but it's also one of those things that can be easily faked. And I think that Tron has been a victim to that in the past, in terms of people at least speculating that they're faking a lot of those growth metrics. But one metric that's very hard to fake is TVL and liquidity on chain. Unless, of course, it's Justin Sun adding his own money there. But again, he has the money and he's able to actually throw that weight around. So I think that he's done a pretty shrewd move here in actually creating these metrics or creating these narratives where people have tangible things to share, like, oh, money's moving here. Money's very exciting to people and people want to move where the money is. And when I see Tron on my timeline right now, it's speaking mostly about, hey, look at the USDT minted here. I saw an interesting post yesterday that was actually advertising, and it looked like it was probably from a paid KOL, but advertising the cost of minting $1 billion of Tron on the Tron network, and it was next to zero. So these are some of the very exciting things that people like to see in order to move to a chain.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that you mentioned, like the validity of the TVL, and the money moving around, and is this Justin's? I think at the same time, the way that a lot of degens and like the crypto communities would view it as, like, if it is his money, that's probably even more bullish, because he's putting his money where his mouth is now, however legitimate that might be. But we're talking about optics. And so, that optic in and of itself is, a founder, a project owner, a blockchain owner, doubling down on his ecosystem is something that would send the market in a frenzy. We'll go Dan, Richard, and then we'll talk to our
Yeah,
guest of honor.
sure. Speaking about optics, I think Tron has a bit of an optics problem, or certainly has historically. It's seen as like the cheap chain, right? And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but I think it's perception. If someone, if I'm sending something to somebody and they ask me to send it on Tron, I do internally think, Tron, that's like the cheap chain. That's like, it's just like a lower prestige level or something like that, if that makes sense. I think if they can get around that, I don't know why they're kind of branded with that, because BNB chain is cheap as well, and Polygon's designed to be cheap, but it doesn't have that kind of, I don't know, it gives me the ick a little bit, Tron. Anyone else feel that, or just me?
Yeah, I disagree with that completely. I think at the time when ETH was killing us, I mean, we were hoping that ETH was, the knight in shining armor. For any investments we were making, pretty much the move was to try and move money on Tron, and it was a saving grace at some point. So, and to date, not one issue with any transaction. I think it's filled a necessary gap and brought awareness to the fact that chains should be cheap to transact on. look, I'm going to put my neck out here and say that, you know, crypto is a strange place, and we need characters like this. I mean, Vitalik even today